Hello, I'm here with the Digitone II. This thing went under my radar, like I didn't even pay any attention to it. And the reason for that is because I actually used to own the OG Digitone, and I decided to get rid of it because I found that it didn't really suit my sound. It sounded a little too FM-y to me, and it definitely sounded a lot more elementary in comparison to the Digitone II. That being said, much like with the Digitact II, Digitact II, they added a lot to this thing. Like, I still think that the OG Digitact is one of the best deals on the market, and it isn't too much different from the Digitact II. This thing is light years ahead of the Digitone. It's one of those synths, and this is kind of becoming a theme with Elektron gear. It just keeps going in the most perfect way. They've added machines to it, so you could choose an FM tone, FM drum, wave tone, as well as swarmer. Or you could set this to a MIDI channel. Each machine, of course, has different parameters. 4 pages of params on the FM drum tone, as well as FM synth tones on the synth page. There's also a second filter page if, let's say, you want to add a high pass or low pass onto what you've already done with the first filter. 3 LFOs as opposed to 2 on the OG Digitone. And the biggest leap is the amount of voices that you have. So there's 16 voices. And what I like about the different machines is that you don't have to designate that machine to its specific function, meaning that you could very easily use an FM drum for your synth parts. And you could just as easily use an FM synth for your drum parts. And that's actually reflected in a lot of the presets, the default presets in the Digitone II. And on the topic of presets, I think that they matter a lot. The default presets on this thing are amazing. They're amazing starting points, as you'll see throughout the video. I definitely have not gotten bored of the default presets yet, so that's great. To make another comparison to the OG Digitone, maybe it's just because I'm in a different place now, but I found that the sounds on the OG Digitone were much more in that sort of Super Nintendo kind of video gamey style, and much less in the style of sound that I'm used to now, which tends to lean more into like the tribal Berlin techno sort of sound. This is the machine that really made me realize that if you toy around with the synth page, so you know, the FM settings here, you start really tweaking and param locking certain things, that's where you really get into that sort of FM Berlin-y sound. If you are a Digitone II user, I've exported all of these ideas as maybe a starting point that you could use. There's a download link to that project linked in the description. And if this amazing machine ends up being something that you consider yourself using, use the purchase affiliate link in the description of this video. That's a great support to this channel. So let's get started with making something. I'm actually going to paste this, my favorite pattern, this one again, because I like those sounds, so we could use that as a starting point. So this one here, copy, and we'll go paste that to 14. And then remove all the parts. We'll start from scratch. Starting with kick. So this is one of my favorite kicks, BD Busted. So this is what it sounds like. I really like to go into the 4th page and kind of play around with noise. And there's also a transient here we could play with. Right, so these are all just different transients. Completely different characters. On top of that, I could sort of isolate the transient. I can change the noise level, the transient level, which of course this is just way too loud. Maybe just a tiny bit of that. Right up front, I should say that about the drums. The Digitone's drums were a little weak, I found. These are amazing, and I would say comparable to the Analog Rhythm Mark II. It's extremely easy to start with a preset and just turn it into something completely different. So let's, right, just changing the operator, these waves a little bit. It's just a completely different kick. Even this here, sweep depth. Getting into modular territory over here. Then I'll just do my thing with the sequencer. I always love to play around with trig parameters, things like that. So let's add something there, and we'll change the probability to 2 out of 2 times. So now it's gonna play the second of 2 times. And I'll change the character of this kick. This is something that I always do. Turn this into a low pass filter. Right, so it's quite subtly there, and this, because it's so subtle, it kind of opens up the opportunity to maybe add something over top of that. So let's see what else we could do. Should we just add the hi-hats in just to have them? Okay, cool, we have hi-hats. We'll get back to those in a bit. here. Let's make that the second of every 2 times. And I'll add a second one right here, and same thing, I'm gonna play with the filter. Maybe add some effects to this, pull down that reverb, delay. This is definitely my favorite snare sound, so we will get to that as well. But I think I'll use this one sparingly because it is very like upfront in your face. See what we could do with these hi-hats. On this first page, this is a high pass, and I don't want to turn it into a low pass. So I could just use that second page instead of completely changing the flavor of this hi-hat. Maybe open it. Again, this is another opportunity for us to add something on that step 14. Let's play this one in so we could really control where that note is. Okay, so that'll be the start of whatever bass riff that would come up with. Because this preset in particular, it's called Untuned, and it's an FM tone. I love this bass preset. I'm using it on all of my bass parts. Just to show you the capability, because sometimes you come up with something and you're like, how the f did I come up with that? So check what the bass is doing. Get rid of those hi-hats. If you're wearing headphones, you'll hear that. There's like a certain depth to that bass, which is a common characteristic of all FM bass tones. They're deep. Like some of the deepest bass tones you'll hear are FM tones. So that'll be the start of this bass line. We're just gonna throw in some other notes here, and we're gonna play around with parameters on the synth page, see what we come up with. So something here, but it'll play the second of 2 times. So right away I'll add the trigger to it. Second of 2 times. And then go to that synth page again. Mess around with this algorithm. If I play with the XY axis here, I could bring this to X, which is just a completely different character. Maybe add lots of reverb onto that. And it's a bit more of a basic character. What if we just change the algorithm completely? Now we have something completely different. I'm by no means an FM expert. It's a really dense type of synthesis, but for me, this is how I've been using the Digitone II, relying mostly on its sequencer, which I've always done, and just changing parameters on specific notes. We're gonna do a little sequencer trick here. So this note here, this is already playing the second of 2 times. It's gonna play the fourth of 4 times now. I'm gonna copy the note to here. We're gonna move this note all the way to step 14, basically. And this will play the second of 2 times. And I'm gonna take off that delay. So that brings even more variation to this. Okay, plenty of space for other things. I always like to leave a second voice for hi-hats, so that's on channel 8 here. Let's open these up. This is really interesting groove. PC Tommy Boy is also a very interesting sound, and it uses the FM drum instead of FM tones. We could play with that engine a little bit more. If I wanted to, I could definitely use this keyboard here. With the hats again. Let's make these a lot shorter. So there's a lot going on with the LFOs on this one, obviously. Let's take the pan off. Almost off. And I'm gonna change the depth of the synth ratio as well. So it's not so random, you know what I mean? And if we go, there's a lot of transient as well, so that's on the 4th page here. And now it's a bit more of a synth, like a very atonal synth techno sort of thing going on. But if we wanted to bring it more into perk land, we could even use this noise. Let's pan these hi-hats. So this one will be on the left. This one will be on the right. Function page, and I'm going to change the length of this one specifically. So let's make this 14 notes, see what happens. Hard to believe that these are FM drum tones. They sound so good. plenty of space for other things as well. Let's go to this one here, and we're gonna change it for wavetone. The wavetone machine isn't quite as flexible as the FM engine. So let's play around with this. Right, so it's just a different sound. With the FM drum parameters, same sort of thing here. We could shape the transient of this noise. So that's how I ended up using it in a very percussive way, big surprise. And there's also a swarmer machine. I think it's quite limited, so I don't tend to use it that much, but just to give you an idea of the controls here, it's only one page of parameters to control. Right, so it could be cool for kind of like noisy pads or chords or something like that. This is kind of cool. It's kind of drony. Has a drony feel to it. And then if you throw that through some reverb, that's where things can maybe get a little bit more interesting. In fact, here, I'm going to actually open up this reverb a little bit. Sound effects, go over to reverb, and I'm going to change the decay here. Right, so that's kind of a vibe. Throw some chorus on here. Oh, cool. Right, now we're just in a completely different territory. This doesn't really fit into what we just created here. With the Digitone II and with all Elektron machines, for me, it always comes down to relying on the sequencer and the sequencer parameters and just twisting knobs and seeing what works and what doesn't. For someone who has a much more rhythmic sort of approach to music in general, this is my jam. This is where it's at.